Hello and welcome to another episode of Homo Politicus. Like we often do, this is one program where we look in depth into issues as they happen and of course get to analyze them as much as we can. I am Henry Igwebike and you are on to Enterprise Television. Today we'll be taking a look at the three West African nations set to exit from Ecowas. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger Republic will officially cease to be members of the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) from January of 2025. The announcement was made by Aliou Touré, president of the ECOWAS Commission, during the 66th Ordinary Session in Abuja, Nigeria. The decision comes after the three nations notified ECOWAS of their withdrawal, as stipulated in Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty. A transitional period from January 29 to July 29, 2025. Established to allow for final mediation and possible reconciliation efforts, President Faure Gnassingbé of Togo and Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal, along with ECOWAS Chair Bola Ahmed Tinubu, have been tasked with ongoing diplomatic engagements. A contingency plan will also be developed to address the political and economic relations opposed to withdrawal, with further decisions expected in an extraordinary session in mid-2025. I have with me Emeka Amadolago. He is a journalist and public affairs analyst to take us on this particular matter. Thank you so very much, Emeka.
Thank you very much.
All right, beautiful. So let's take a look at this. What a time in Africa, in the sub-Saharan Africa, that we have in three countries who were, of course, a part of those who came together to create the ECOWAS, and just about today they are desiring to leave the bloc. What do you have to say about this, if number one? Then secondly, what effect do you think this would have on the community?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's unfortunate that some members of ECOWAS have been, are actually looking at leaving the body. This is a worrisome development, but you have to look at the fact that these nations have come of age to the point where they feel that, no, they cannot continue with certain bilateral and multilateral engagements. They feel that ECOWAS has not served their best interests. ECOWAS has sat idly by while France, the former colonial power, has rendered these countries, poverty-stricken. France has been taking their resources. France has just virtually been running the economies of these countries, domiciling their central banks in Paris. So they've come to the point whereby, these are much younger men. How old were they when ECOWAS was formed? And you look at it, they are now saying that enough is enough. They cannot continue like this. France gets 17% of its uranium needs from Niger Republic. And now Niger has told France to get out of the country. So they feel that ECOWAS hasn't really done much for them. And so, as a result, they are leaving. Well, the implications for them is that, they are going to lose the membership of a body like ECOWAS, and any benefits accruing from ECOWAS.
So what benefits are there really?
You have the free trade. You have the free movement of persons, even though that has not been, is not been fully implemented. But anybody from any country in West Africa should be able to move to another country without a visa. Okay. Should be able to move freely. But at the border points, you still see people, they still have to stamp your passports and all of those things. And it should not be. Because you find in the Schengen countries in Europe, you don't find such inhibitions. So why should such, be, why should it be difficult to ensure free trade, free movement, to ensure, enhanced cooperation in different areas, security and all of that? You have the multinational joint task force, which also includes Chad, Benin Republic, Niger. So what it means, Niger and Nigeria. So what it means is that Niger is very likely to pull out of that leave that task force, and that would be a major problem for the Sahel and for Nigeria and for West African countries, because Niger has been a major partner in the fight against terrorism, against Boko Haram and ISWAP. And if Niger, as a result of, exiting Ecowas, now moves out of the task force, then that leaves Nigeria in a vulnerable situation.
Now, leaving Nigeria in a vulnerable situation, let's not forget that our seaports are the entry point for some of these landlocked countries like Niger and Chad and so on and so forth. So if this comes to be, what effect do you think that would be for some of these countries?
Of course, trade will move to Burkina Faso now. Ouagadougou has a port which has been crying for patronage. So the goods headed for Niger, headed for Chad, will just come through Ouagadougou. And what it means is that that's good business for them. That's good business for them. And Nigeria will suffer. Nigeria's ports will suffer as a result, because what moves to those countries is not a little thing. That's why France put that money to build an international railway from Lomé, Togo, to Niamey. But former Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari now decided to run a rail line from Daura, his hometown, to Maradi in the Republic. I don't know how far either has gone. I don't think they've really become of any consequence in terms of movement. But Nigeria is going to lose big time. Some of our food exports, like beans, come from Niger. Come from Niger Republic.
And livestock too.
Yes, so if we lose, that's why they are still looking for how to beg Niger. But you can't say you are begging these countries to remain ECOWAS. And President Bola Tinubu is romancing with France.
Exactly.
France is their major enemy. France, to them, is the reason for their economic backwardness, for their high level of indebtedness. And you are begging them with one hand, and at the same time, you are romancing France. No. You will just destroy everything. And then look at the countries that have been asked to mediate with them. Francophone countries. How does it work?
But how
Senegal, Togo. How does it work? How will it work out? You are still friends with France. You could have maybe looked for other countries, maybe like Ghana. Ghana, although Ghana was actually one of the countries pushing Nigeria to invade Niger some months ago.
Yes.
So maybe that's why Ghana is out of it. But maybe a country like maybe Benin Republic, that in such instances has been Benin has
even if at that point of invasion, Ghana, Nigeria, Benin were ready to bring in their troops and possibly have a joint part to invade in that particular place. But looking at what is really happening, why do you think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is the chair of ECOWAS, has not realized the consequences of some of his actions, especially in romance with France, while he knows that the three countries are enemies of France?
Tinubu is between a rock and a hard place. The Nigerian economy is in a mess. 80 million people in extreme poverty. Nigeria has the highest number of very poor people in the world. This year's budget, the 2024 budget, has recorded a deficit. And even next year's budget, they are talking of borrowing to finance next year's budget. So at this point, every friend, no matter the description, fair weather, genuine friend, long distance friend, close friend, next door neighbor friend, is necessary. So that the Nigerian economy doesn't go the way of Zimbabwe or Sri Lanka or Venezuela. So it's in a hard place. Is in a hard place, and it's difficult for him to say no to France. France says, okay, that they've signed an MOU with Nigeria to revive 2,000 abandoned pits. What are they looking for? Uranium. They're not going there to look for coal or to look for graphite or to look for limestone. No, they're going to look for uranium because they really need uranium. So, and Nigeria has some deposits of uranium in about 5 states. So, if France says that they're interested in that, then, you know, of course, that's some good money for Nigeria, because they will definitely pay for the, you know, resuscitation of the 2,000 pits mine. So, even if out of 2,000 they find uranium in only maybe 20, it's to the benefit of Nigeria, because they will remediate. Look at how long it's taking to remediate Ogoniland, to clean up Ogoniland. Look at all the politics, the high rep, and all, look at all the politics back and forth and everything. But here is France saying that from the commencement date of the, once we agree on the commencement date of the MOU, we're going to start, we're going to bring in money, we're going to clean up this pit. So, I mean, well, Tinubu is in a difficult place right now.
All right. Of course, for any conflict, there's always, you know, a rudiment, always the cause of some of those conflicts. Is it fair to blame President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the crisis that we have? Do you think it would have been better managed if Tinubu was not the president of Nigeria, and of course, which means he wouldn't be the chair of Ecowas? Do you think possibly that his management of the situation when it started in its infancy contributed to what we have today?
Absolutely. Tinubu is to blame. 80% is to blame. I think he just exhibited naive, you know, I mean, that just shows he was naive. How can France be pushing you to invade a fellow African country? A country with which you have a joint defense pact to fight Boko Haram and ISWAP? A country that has suffered as a result of extremism, you know, jihadist extremism, and then that's the country you want to invade? A country you're supplying electricity to, you cut off the electricity, and they said a lot of patients died in their hospitals. You block the border, stop food from entering, you know, and until it got to a point where they threatened to shoot down your plane. You see how the audacity to be overflying, to be passing through their airspace. Come on, do we think the giant of Africa, what do we think we are really? Giant of Africa? Who cares? This is the 21st century where countries are doing their best to maximize their potential. So they don't care, giant of Africa, no giant of Africa. Okay, I'll give you an example. Look at US and China. China did something unthinkable last month. No, last month, yeah. You know what they did? You know, China would previously raise dollar bonds in the US. But you know what they did? They went to Saudi Arabia to raise the dollar bond, $2 billion. China is awash with money, but you know what they were doing? They sent a strong message to incoming US President Donald Trump that, wait a minute, we can actually trade in the dollar outside of the United States. And they raised $2 billion. You know, not because China needs money, but China had to do it as a preemptive strike, as a preemptive warning, because, you know, the Chinese president had actually sent a message to Donald Trump that, look, there are 4 areas you should not cross. Taiwan. Don't recognize Taiwan as an independent, as a sovereign nation. Don't try to engage in regime change in China. Those things you said you will do against the Chinese economy, don't. Then also the area of security, don't. So, but of course it's clear that Donald Trump and his cabinet and his aides will try significantly to overreach those boundaries. But the point is that China has moved ahead. So for Nigeria to think that, oh, because we're giant of Africa, you're not among, economically, you have the largest economy, but you don't have the best economy in Africa. Much smaller nations, you know, Mauritius, Seychelles, you know, Botswana, they have better run economies than yours. So, you know, for you to think you could just have entered Niger, security experts warned that we would have been disgraced. Because all that Niger needed to do was to unleash those separatists. Yes, and in their prisons.
As rebels.
In their prisons, yes, unleash them against the Nigerian army. And how far would we have gone? How would it have been for them to have shot down? How many aircraft do we have? Aircraft that were using to terrorize people in different parts of the country that were fighting insurgents in the southeast. You know, helicopter gunships that have been used to bomb parts of the southeast, and they become abandoned. You know, soldiers invading communities in the southeast because their counterparts were killed. It's wrong to kill soldiers or security personnel. But now taking it out on the civilian population, just because something happened in a place, and there's this mindset that we must deal with them, that we must deal with the southeast because of Biafra. And it's that mindset they wanted to take to Niger, but people told them, listen, you are going to be disgraced. In fact, you didn't see any disgrace in Sierra Leone or Liberia during Ecowas. In this one, you are going to see a real disgrace. How a mighty nation was brought to the sand, was brought down to the dust by a small nation. So, and of course, joined by Mali, joined by Burkina Faso, joined by Chad. These are nations that are facing dire economic situation, dire economic circumstances that you expect will lean on Nigeria for survival. But they've said, we don't need you. They said, we don't need you. We don't need Ghana. There's another major member of Ecowas. We don't need you. That we're going to chart our future ourselves. And for them to have done that, people are looking at Sudan. That Sudan is likely to join. And so when you now have the league, the coalition of the aggrieved in Africa, it sends a dangerous signal.
Now, talking about the association of
the coalition of the aggrieved,
coalition of aggrieved in the Sahel, and let's not forget, Emeka, that these countries are run by military dictators, and there's never been a country run efficiently by military dictatorship. I don't know. I stand to be corrected, but do you think the way these countries are going, knowing that their governance style is in itself, questionable, do you think that success is somewhere just before them?
They're going to succeed.
Really?
They will succeed because, you know what, more nations are going to join them.
But given their style of governance, because I think it's very important.
No, what's the style of governance? Matthew Kerekou was a dictator. Was a military dictator in Benin Republic, but he largely stabilized Benin Republic. That he came back as a civilian leader and left when his tenure ended. Is it Muammar Gaddafi in Libya? If not, that his rule was brought to an end by Western forces. Of course, Muammar Gaddafi, was said to be running his country well. And one of the legacies is that today Libya has the cheapest, is the oil-producing country in Africa that has the cheapest petrol at 52 naira per liter. Is a consequence of the way Muammar Gaddafi prioritized the people, the welfare of the people, in his policies and programs. So I'm not advocating for military rule. So that I'm a strong believer in democracy. Okay. But what I'm saying is that in the circumstances we find ourselves, you need to have a close look, a critical look at what these guys represent. These young guys represent. What they represent? They represent the face of a new Africa. The new face of Africa. So you look at Yasingbe, whose father was a military dictator, and later I think transmitted to become a civilian dictator and died in office, then his son took over. Of course, they don't want such a record because they believe it's France, countries like France, Nigeria, the United States, United Kingdom, that actually acquiesce to such tendencies. Now, they've said they are open to holding elections. One of them, I think, is Burkina Faso or Mali, has actually said that, has actually set in motion, plans to hold this. But there have also been accusations that France is planning to invade these countries if the mediation by Ecowas fails. But definitely, they will have no standing to do so.
Now, don't you think this is a further fragmentation of Africa, as it were? Africa has come, has been dealt with for centuries, and even up until today, that issue still lingers from the West. Don't you think there is a hand somewhere that we are not seeing, giving these people the gusto to want to do what they do? Let's not forget the importance of Russia to some of these countries. Yes.
I was coming to that.
Yes. So don't you think we are still heading back to where we are not supposed to be, especially for these countries?
You see, Russia has been under sanctions, which have negatively affected its economy. Russia has also been fighting a war, fought a war in Georgia. It's been fighting a war in Ingushetia. It, has been in a major war with Ukraine.
And lost one in Syria.
If I had to run away from one, not that they even lost, they ran away. They ran away from Syria. So, Russia has been looking for friends. That's why Russia has been determined to make sure that the BRICS works.
Okay.
Even though Donald Trump is saying that no, the BRICS should not work, that the dollar should remain the prime currency of exchange in the world. But who cares? Who gives a hoot? After all, there was a time that we had the gold standard, but it was dumped. So who says that the dollar can be dumped? Yeah, the dollar might be easy for international trade, but nobody says that it's not cast in stone. It's not cast in stone. So, of course, that's why other countries are looking for, alternative means of, engaging in trade, international trade, like the BRICS, like the Mint, so those countries will not lose. I don't think they will lose because Russia will do its best to keep them, afloat. Okay, look at what has happened in the last few days. Russia and India have reached an agreement that Russia will supply India with crude. How about that? Meanwhile, India has been the largest buyer of crude from Nigeria. That money now is going to go to Russia. Even though the Indian president was in Nigeria. Yeah. Indian prime minister, was in Nigeria some days ago. But the money is going to Russia. So, definitely, is it in uranium and others, other areas? Russia is in a good standing with these countries. So, in the issue of holding elections and we all know that in Africa, military leaders, largely transmute to civilian leaders. So, it's possible that they might hold elections in which they will stand and become civilian presidents. And the key thing is that they have the support of their people.
Well, let's just hope it works like the one in Egypt. After the down of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, the military.
Okay, the man that was
yes, that ousted the
Morsi.
Morsi. Yes, transitioned to the
other man.
Yes, exactly.
What's that his name?
Yeah. Muslim Brotherhood.
No, it was Morsi now. Who was the Muslim Brotherhood man? And when he was removed, of course. Yes, we're running Egypt, and the whole world wants to be friends with Egypt.
Very, very well.
Right now, Egypt has the strongest army in Africa, followed by Algeria.
The biggest allies to the West, to Israel itself.
All of them. So they are all cutting Egypt.
Yes. So, so while we talk about just in a few minutes just before we drop our anchor for today, when we have such issues, when there are conflicts like this, every nation, big and small, begins to see interest and begin to see opportunities. Morocco has been one country in Africa that always desperately desired to be part of Ecowas. Even at the time it was formed in Lagos, they were not allowed to be part of ECOWAS. But now with the three countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, desiring to move themselves out of ECOWAS, Morocco is desiring to form a pact with them. What do you think would be the motive for Morocco?
Morocco actually wants to be one of the leading nations in Africa. And Morocco has a strong economy. Morocco is doing very well in terms of its industrialization. It's doing very well, far ahead of Nigeria. So for Morocco trying to become a member of ECOWAS is to make forays into West Africa. Don't forget, it's been having issues with the Western Sahara, and Nigeria has had, mixed views about Western Sahara. Muhammadu Buhari, the former president, made no bones about his support for Western Sahara. So in being a part of ECOWAS, Morocco also wants to extend its influence, across Africa. So definitely it's going to affect Nigeria's interest. It's going to affect, because if Morocco finally gets into ECOWAS and begins to reach out to countries like Ghana with the African and Continental Free Trade Secretariat, begins to reach out to other like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, some of those countries in West Africa. It's going to be a major problem for Nigeria.
Very true. All right, I would have wished we continue, but that's just about the time we have for the show today. I'd love to say thank you to Emeka Madnogo.
Thank you very much
for being part of our show today. And the truth remains that it takes two to tango. You know, when you have a family of many and a few are desiring to opt out, it's really not good. It's really not good for such a bunch of people with the desire to move forward and achieve better. And we sincerely hope that this works well for the region and Africa in its entirety. That's the time we have for Homo Politicus today. But please do well to visit us. You can always find and reach us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Igubika. I'll see you next time on Homo Politicus. Thank you and bye-bye.